soon as this is live. And I'll do an intro first, okay? So
okay,
if you just stay muted, then they'll just get me, and then I'll introduce you guys. Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lockdown Parenting. I can't believe that we're doing this. It's 3 times. This is the 3rd one. It's been every other week for a few weeks now, and we've had a really exciting time. I thought we might just do one of these, but then by popular demand, believe it or not, we're back again tonight, and I'm specifically and super excited to welcome a few guests. I'm going to introduce you to them in a moment. If you've made it this far in your day, congratulations. I always think if you're a parent, you've got through another day of homeschool and it's got to 8:30 and you've actually dialed into a parenting in lockdown seminar online, it's gold stars all around. You've done incredibly well. So give yourself a pat on the back. You might want to get yourself a nice drink to support your journey over the next hour with us. If we've not met before, I'm Will Vanderhart. I'm one of the co-directors of the Mind and Soul Foundation, exploring issues of emotional mental health and Christian spirituality. And I'm also Associate Vicar at St. Dionis Church in Parsons Green. And previously was a primary school teacher, so I've got a few nuggets to share tonight, but it's been a while now. It's my 45th birthday tonight, so I'm celebrating my birthday with you guys online. As you can see, I'm loving it. And I'm really excited to have a chat with some of the teachers. As a parent, I've got a secondary school daughter, and I've got 2 boys in primary school, one in upper primary and one in reception. So our spread of the family ages is pretty broad. The result of that is that I've got teachers in right through in the early years, right through into secondary. And, you know, it still fills me with dread and intrepidation when I get a call from the teacher. We even had an interaction with the teacher about the orthodontist appointment this week, which is a classic. Can my daughter have a couple of hours off to go to the orthodontist? And I was waiting for the no, but she gave me a yes, so thank you for that. The key thing is that there is a lot of misunderstanding between teachers and parents, and I think this lockdown season has been particularly tricky. I wanted to do something tonight about bridging the gap and hearing from teachers and getting some first-hand experience. So I'm going to welcome them now and introduce you to them. So we've got Jam, Ollie and Louisa on the call tonight. And welcome to you all. Firstly, can I say massive thank you for all that you're doing to educate our children. Obviously not my children specifically, although yeah, Louisa is one of the teachers from my daughter's school. But thank you universally to you guys and to all teachers who are logging in tonight, just for the amazing, amazing work you've been doing over the last year. I cannot imagine what it's been like, but I want to find out a bit about what it's been like. So welcome, Jan. Why don't we start with you? Tell us just a bit about you and about your specialisms, where do you work, and what age group are you specifically focused in on?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all this evening. So I've actually got a really interesting, I'll try and keep this brief, relationship with education in general. Growing up, as a clergy child, I moved around every 4 years and absolutely hated school with a passion, hated it. So much so that I suppose you'd say played truant, but I just pretended I was ill. So actually, if you add up all my attendance from reception, so 4 years old, up until 16 years old, I've only actually ever been in school 2 years. I'm saying that to give everybody comfort that this little blip in the education time of your child's life really not that big a deal, educationally wise, because I've done all right. So yes, and then when I got to 16 years old, my dad just said, just do something that makes you happy. Anything, I don't care what it is, just find something that makes you happy. Go work in a florist, work in a baker's. And I said, I think I want to work in a school. Well, he nearly fell off his chair. So yeah, and without sounding like Miss World, I just thought if I can make one child's day better because I understand how it feels not to enjoy school, then I want to do that. So I started work when I was 16. 20 years later, I'm still there now, not in the same school, but I'm still working in education. And my specialism is early years education. I'm primary trained, but I've worked in early years for the last 20 years. And I currently work in an all-boys pre-prep school in Notting Hill.
Jam, that is amazing. What an introduction, and so comforting to know that you can turn out so well, having only done two years of consistent education. So amazingly encouraging. Thank you so much. Ollie, over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Yes, I'm Ollie Jarcombe. I work at the Hurlingham Academy, which is down Peterborough Road. How far does it go? It goes from year 7 up to year 11, up to GCSE. I've been there, I think this is year 5. And yeah, I'm a geography teacher. So I teach all those years. That's it, really.
Thanks, Ollie. Brilliant. And Louisa?
Hi, yeah, I'm Louisa. I work at Thames Christian School, which is where Will's daughter is, which has been really nice to have her there in our first year. So it goes from year 7 up to the end of GCSE currently. And I've been there for 8 years, can't really believe it. It's definitely a long-standing member of staff. And I work teaching art, but I also work in a bit of management as well, working with staff. So that's something that I really enjoy, helping staff settle in, find their feet, and help them kind of like discover their passion, but also just grow in what they really love doing in helping young people to develop.
Well, when I look at you guys, I'm just my confidence in sending children to school has already gone through the roof, because I just think I can't think of 3 better teachers. I can imagine having my kids having an amazing time with you. But this is, you all look fresh and buoyant right now, but this has been an incredibly difficult season. Does someone want to step in with something that, a bit of a reflection about what's been difficult, particularly for teachers in general, maybe for you personally? Maybe Ollie, do you want to start us off with what's been challenging from your perspective?
Yeah, what's been challenging? I think so. It's not very helpful, but I think I'd say certain things. I feel lucky for not having certain things. I feel lucky for being able to go in, and the essential bit of teaching, especially this term, which I really love, is like the interaction with the kids. And now that we're fully live, we still get that. So it's definitely hard work in terms of, and now we're coming down to what's hard. And I think, like everyone, communicating with the screen is hard. I had a couple of lessons yesterday morning where I think one of them was introducing new stuff to year 10s, and the other one was trying to take year 9s through a test that some of them hadn't done as brilliantly on as they thought they might. And that was just a lot of talking from me. And I just realized by about midday that I'd kind of blown a gasket in my voice. So I think just things like that, it's just that much more tiring. And then life is just that much more kind of monotonous, isn't it? I think one of the things I loved about being a teacher in London was you have such an easy kind of out. At the end of the day, you can just go and do something else. And it's, for such a emotionally intense job, you can just go and almost have another day afterwards. But it's obviously none of us have that anymore. So I think, yeah, the intensity with the lockdown is definitely hard. But I'd still say the things that I love about teaching are still there. So I think is that okay? Can I say that?
Yeah, that's so helpful. I mean, I remember from my years of teaching, just that kind of feeling of being on stage a lot, in front of a class, and using such a lot of presentational energy, but that being sort of bursts, because you might present for 15 minutes and then get children on task for a bit. But the nature of the online thing is that you have to almost be content heavy much more and for extended periods of time to try and keep children on task. So I can see the sort of level of exhaustion. Obviously, I've noticed, my daughter's quite good online. She's doing quite well in terms of persistence. So in some ways, secondary children are more connected. Jam, I'd love to hear about early years, because I've got to be honest, I'm really struggling. My 4-year-old is not loving online school, and I just wondered what it's like for a teacher to have that experience. You're just on mute, Jams. If you just want to unmute and share that with us.
Yeah, I would say just that the biggest challenge for teachers, especially with children in the early years, is that children at that age, they rely so heavily on the tangible objects and that kind of concrete learning rather than the abstract. And in order to support a child fully in that, they need to be kinesthetic in their learning and use all those concrete objects. And where within the classroom you would have hands everywhere like an octopus, and you'd be like throwing resources left, right and center. At the moment, we're heavily relying on the parents being able to source the kind of things we need in order to deliver the teaching. So I think the biggest challenge for us so far has been the fact that really we just want to break through into every child's home and say, it's okay, because actually we don't care if you don't get numbers to 10, play with 10 pieces of pasta instead. And it's about, equipping the families with the understanding that, use anything around you in order to help your child learn. It doesn't just have to be sheet based, which is quite the temptation when you are, teaching from a distance. But with engaging children, it is a huge struggle. And actually, I'll be honest, we've been online obviously since January, and we've seen that kind of dip in the novelty's just worn off for all the earlier. I think the first 2 weeks, the parents were like, what do we do? And the kids were like, well, this is fun. And now we've kind of seen quite the opposite. The kids are like, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. I want to get back on the playground and see my friends. And the parents are like, but they're not sitting in front of the computer. And, part of you wants to say, well, they need to sit at the computer because we're having to deliver learning opportunities for them as teachers. We're paid to do so. People are checking we're doing that. But on the other side, you just want to say, yeah, who can blame them? Get them outside, run around. And if you know what, counting back from 50 playing hide and seek, that's maths. Go do it. So I think it's that kind of balance between ensuring that you're providing learning opportunities, but also giving the children the freedom just to cope with the pandemic themselves as individuals.
Jan, that's so helpfully put. Thank you. And that gives me a lot of reassurance as a parent. We're going to talk a bit more about parent expectations later on, but it's really, really helpful and encouraging. Louisa, from your point of view, I know you're a deputy head and you've got a view, particularly as you said earlier, to staff well-being. What would you say about colleagues' general well-being right now, and maybe from what you've picked up from colleagues in other schools too, about teachers' well-being in general? Because I think I've got as a sort of emotional health specialist, I've got concerns about teachers' well-being generally right now, specifically not only partly because of the level of threat that they've been existing under, as well as in being exposed to a significant amount of virus, trying to keep children safe. I just wondered if you had a few perspectives on that.
Yeah, I think I've been surprised with this. I don't know if I've frozen. Have I frozen? Am I frozen? Wait, yeah. Am I back?
Okay. Yeah, it works. You look good.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was surprised with this lockdown with how positive staff have been going into it. I think the fact that they'd had the first one to learn how to do lockdown well has really made a difference. And I wonder if I've frozen again because you've frozen for me. No? Okay. Yeah, so I think that they've taken so much from the last one and brought it into this one, and that's really helped them sort of set high standards for what they're doing this term. I think that in itself creates a tension because the staff want to be able to achieve so much with their children. And I think some of it is about managing that tension because teaching is not the same online as what they're doing this term. I think that in itself creates a tension because the staff want to be able to achieve so much with their children. And I think some of it is about managing that tension because teaching is not the same online as what they're doing this term. I think that in itself like creates a tension because the staff want to be able to achieve so much with their children. And I think some of it is about managing that tension because teaching is not the same online as what they're doing.
Okay, we seem to have a little problem here. We've got a bit of a challenge. Just hold on a sec, folks, whilst we try and patch in. The internet's got very unstable for a sec.
I don't mind doing some dough disco or some little brain breaks, as every good teacher would do in this situation.
Go on.
Was that a like, dare you?
That is one of the things, because you don't know if it's yours or someone else's. It's the same when you're online teaching children, whether you're doing parents' evenings. Like, this is just an example of all the things that we all have to manage. Exactly. But good to get some disco effects.
It then becomes a pride thing, like, no, well, my internet's been fine all day. How's yours been?
Jen, which year groups do you teach mainly?
So I'm the head of the schools, but so I go up to year 3, but I directly teach reception.
Okay.
But I'm in charge of the academic and pastoral up to year 3.
And in your school, do you tend to teach live lessons or do you do pre-recordings? Because I've heard in primary school a lot's pre-recorded.
We're doing all of ours live, apart from integrated curriculum, which is in the afternoon. But we do one-to-ones all afternoon. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But yeah, it's good. I think I'm just going to keep talking because I don't know who's hearing. I think as well, one of the things that has been a struggle is the fact that we've kind of been thrown into this new, like I went into teaching to teach, not to be an IT technician and behavioral therapist, family therapist at the moment. And although obviously those things are necessary and definitely want to support the families, it's like learning a whole new skill set. When really I went into do nice displays and do number bonds to 10. And all of a sudden I'm like trying to fix Teams and Zoom and YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I think what I've really noticed amongst the staff is because with the first lockdown, like I was saying before, I think everyone did find it really difficult because it was such a shock to our system in so many ways, like not just our profession, but our personal lives as well. There was so much people were adapting to. Whereas I feel like maybe this time round, people have made more adjustments. And then actually what I'm seeing amongst the staff team is often teachers or teaching does attract quite adaptable people because you have to be so adaptable to survive in a school. Yeah. So I just find it amazing watching staff adapt in this environment and remain positive, because the only way it works ultimately is staff remain positive for the children. I think if it was all adults together, maybe we'd find it harder because you might like give in to everyone is struggling, but in front of the children, everyone has to kind of say it's going well because everyone wants it to go well for them and to give them confidence.
Yeah. I do remember in the first lockdown so the nursery was even closed then, so we were delivering online live teaching to 3-year-olds, and imagine like phonics meets Lara Croft. So I'd be running around my house and the boys would be going, the bedroom. I'd run into the bedroom, pick up a CVC word and they'd have to read it, and then they'd go, the bathroom, and I'd run again. And I think with that, I honestly felt like I had...
Guys, welcome back.
Hi.
So sorry. Hugely frustrating, but I've basically been locked out of my own production. As a guest, I've unguested myself somehow. So I can hear you in my headphones, but I also, hopefully other people can't hear you. So I'm going to hear you twice and hopefully we'll be able to progress this. So sorry about that. Let's push on. Thanks so much, Louisa. Now, I wondered if we could talk a little bit now about supporting children, particularly children who are working, online. And I just wondered if we could just start off with Ollie, just saying a little bit about how we can create an environment online after maybe now 6 weeks where we can support children's learning through the screen on a secondary level. Is there anything that we can do? What are your top tips for supporting older children with their online learning? You're muted, Ollie. So if you just unmute.
Right. Cool. There we go. So I asked a colleague earlier, and I'm just going to check that they're not going to say anything. I do have down here, and then I can give you my distant impressions. So yeah, so this is what one of my senior colleagues said, which was, I mean, the first one is, I mean, to my mind, as the teacher, fairly straightforward, but probably not if you're at home. But if possible, obviously try and use a laptop or a computer rather than a phone. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Ensure the students follow a routine, getting up and dressed ready for school where they can follow their usual routine, or where they can. I've heard of some parents making their kids put on the school uniform as well to sit at home, which is a powerful idea. Try and encourage them to do at least 30 minutes of exercise a day, even as a family. There are good things on YouTube you can do. It's good for family relationships, I've been told. And then, yeah, and that's definitely, I think Jam said it as well. And something I say to my teacher group a lot as well, is just, you know, we as the teachers, we want to see them getting outside. Like, you know, yes, we want them to complete their homework to a high standard, but also, you know, they've been in the chair as long as us, and like, we want them to get outside and see the light before it goes. So important. So yeah, and I think I worry that maybe some parents, and this is completely in parents' remit, but I worry that parents get so worried. At least this is the kind of, you know, about COVID, and that's, you know, the right thing to do. It is right to be worried, but at the same time, you know, fresh air is really important as well. And then, yeah, something that the kids fed back to us was that they don't get any time with their friends from school. And like, you know, yes, they're in the class with them, but, you know, they just don't actually get, and the parents come to us and say, like, you know, could you give them some time just to kind of talk to their friends? And obviously we don't really want to set up a chat room for, for kids, but something that schools started doing is giving them a kind of pancake making pastoral hour, or just something that's a bit more light touch and a bit more kind of interactive, just to kind of keep the friendships on the board as well. Because while I think we as teachers assume it happens outside the classroom, I think
really helpful, Ollie. That's so helpful. I mean, that's been a real challenge for us as parents. It's just, I mean, initially we were sort of saying, you can't call your friends in the breaks, you know, you can't use WhatsApp to sort of like call your friends. But actually now we're going like, actually go on, you know, call your friends, because you need that connection time. You've sort of promoted that, Louisa, haven't you, as a head? There's quite a lot of compromises to make, aren't there, about the nature of supporting online use generally. How do you feel as a head about the amount of online use that children are engaging with?
Well, I think it's been quite interesting because it's come at a time where globally tech has been something that's been under question. So I think there have been interesting things about it, because before COVID, I mean, I'm sure we'll carry on doing it. We're running e-safety evenings, talking about the use of phone, talking about hours that people should be spending on the computer. And then here we are having to kind of go back fully on our word and say, send each other WhatsApp messages, like get in touch, use computers well. And so I think the one thing that I feel very positive about is it's helped us globally as a community to think about how to use tech positively for children. And I think there's been real breakthrough on that, because one of the things we talk about a lot is community in our assemblies. And the way we talk about that partly is talking about how tech is used to build community. Like one of our teachers used an example of TikTok the other day, and somebody who did a sea shanty, and they did like a little clip from the sea shanty, and then other people joined and built community around this song. And so I think it's helped adults to actually engage with youth culture and understand that it's not just like a fad, it's not like an unreal community, it's a genuine thing. And to kind of bring our sense of, well, good and bad there, and actually be a bit more open-minded to the good and acknowledge it is good, and yet to be really savvy about what isn't helpful still. But I think that has been helpful for our teenagers, because I think that they felt more met and understood in that than they did before.
Really, really helpful. That's my I think everyone here's got involved in the sea shanties, although
Oh,
they
really?
turn into earworms. If you listen to them too much, you can't kind of get away from them. They're like, oh my goodness, still singing the sea shanty.
Yeah.
But brilliant idea. I mean, I think that's, as a parent, I think that whole idea of what is authentic community, that's a really big challenge, because you're like, we're so used to sort of saying, oh, it's not really real because it's online. And actually that kind of degrades your children's experience. And you've got to be like, actually, it is real, and we have to support it. We have to encourage it. So it's fascinating, and I wonder whether we'll be able to go back. I mean, that's the weird thing. I kind of, part of me is sort of like, will we be able to go back, given how much leeway we've given? And a lot of us parents, you're saying, if I change this boundary out, if I swap this boundary out, is it gonna be the end of all boundaries online? What do you think, Louisa?
Well, I think that also on the other side, for the young people, I think that they're desperate for physical connection in a way that they perhaps weren't before. So we had a pupil in year 11 that was allowed to come in to do a bit of work on an art project. And he's a pupil that would be a pupil that I wouldn't necessarily expect to say this, but he was saying, I was so glad to be able to come into school. I work with so much more discipline here. And there are a few pupils that in my form that I've been working with that just love getting to work alongside human beings, and they value their teachers in a new way. So I think perhaps as adults, perhaps we're acknowledging more the good things that can happen on online community, but perhaps with young people, their understanding of why human connection is so good has actually gone up. So I feel like there's been this balance that's been brought between adults and teenagers that has enabled our school to get on better when we're together. So like when we had that break between lockdowns, it was the most positive that I've seen our school relationships because of this like extra level of appreciation. So that's what I'm hoping for when we come back after this one as well. And I think I still see it amongst the young people, like they're so appreciative of the teaching that they're getting from teachers online, and relationships are stronger, even though we can't see it at the moment, that when that child has come in, the relationship has been stronger, despite us not spending time together.
Go on, Ollie.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of back up what Louisa said about kind of how the community has just been shown to really kind of matter. I think that's something that our school, put a whole lot of energy into and did so well before, and it's just translated to so much more, or just super high engagement. I think they had 90%, 96% attendance in year 7 last week or something like that, and it's because they they put so much energy into kind of the house membership. We have a kind of four house competition thing going on all the time and things like that, and it just feels like, and because discipline's been just fantastic all the time that I've been there, it really feels like a little bit like when people say if you go into a storm with your ship quite clean, you go okay, and it just feels like that. Whereas hearing other teachers' experiences, it just if things are a bit rocky before, then you're in trouble. Yeah,
I think it's also really interesting to hear
so helpful
to hear other Louisa's aspect from like older children, because even what was lovely and reassuring back in September when we reopened was that we in the classroom we have this most amazing computing area where there's iPads, and I was thinking, oh crumbs, we can't make it look too inviting because we don't want queues of children. We've only got 2 iPads. We don't want everyone queuing up for their turn on the iPad. And actually on the return back to school, not one child visited that corner, not one. They all just wanted to be in the home area, talking about, just that communication and language skill. They couldn't care less about the iPads, which was lovely, because we did think that they would just revert back to what was familiar and had been familiar to them, which was the iPad. So even in the early years, the making of relationships is key.
That's so encouraging. I mean, what you guys are saying is we might have inoculated our children to misuse of devices because the human is so good that they finally realized that actually we should be going for the human, not going for something else, which is remarkable. And I mean, that's really, really positive and encouraging to hear from my perspective. If actually we've blown the mystery of the online out of the water in terms of it's good, but it's not as good as the real McCoy, then that's super exciting. And also, you know, I mean, I guess as a church leader, I feel it to a lesser degree. I'm so passionate about getting people back in the building when it's safe to do so, because I just feel like, oh my goodness, we've missed this so much. And I guess it will be interesting to see. And I hope, as positive as you guys are describing, that when we get back into the classroom, children are going to love school in a way that they maybe haven't loved it before, because they'll appreciate just how special it is. So encouraging. Jam, I'd love to come to you again just on the early years. Just thinking about how can we keep early years connected? You said earlier, which was really releasing, if the children ran outside and build a snowman and you count the number of, you know, carrot eyes or whatever, and it's helpful, you know, that's maths. What would you say to parents who are struggling with little ones in terms of trying to keep them connected online?
Yeah, I think that obviously learning is important, but in the early years there's 3 prime areas which are more important than literacy, more important than maths, which are your specific areas. But the prime areas are physical development, communication and language, and personal, social and emotional development, and they underpin everything else. Without those 3, the rest, I mean, it's pointless. So as long as parents are talking to their children, finding time to spend, you know, talking about their emotions, how they're feeling, you know, just be open and transparent with them about the situation. I think as long as you've got communication and those relationships are strong, that's all that matters. As soon as that relationship wobbles between the parent and the child, you're up against it, and then the child is not going to respond to you. You're not going to give your best to your child. So if I've spent most of my week talking to mums and dads all about this, and it's just keep that relationship between you steady, whatever that looks like. And if that means that actually today you don't log on to home learning and you do bake something instead, then that's great, and that's what should happen. So I would just at the center point of everything, it's making relationships, because as soon as that wavers, your child is not going to take direction from anybody. So yeah, just to really hone in on that.
That's really great advice. I mean, I think one of the things that parents really struggle with is the expectations that teachers are going to be angry with them for changing the play. And I think this is one of the things I really wanted to push into on this call, is just that how many parents feel like they're going to be on the naughty step because they haven't done a good enough job.
Well, I had a parent that was uploading, so we have sheets for everything in our school, and this parent was uploading 30 odd pieces of work onto Seesaw every single day. And I just said, listen, permission for you just to upload your best literacy, your best math and your best whatever other subjects, and that is it. We don't need all 30 pieces of paper. And she just emailed back saying, Miss Jones, this is music to my ears, because I just felt like you would think I was, you know, not doing my job as a mum. And I was like, no, for goodness sake, I think this year has taught us all that flexibility is key.
Louisa, do you want to say a little bit about parent-teacher relationships? And I was thinking specifically about the expectations that some parents that parents have from their teachers, or false expectations that they might be carrying, and maybe also expectations that parents have for teachers that might be unrealistic as well. Do you see that as an issue, or how does it work out for you?
I haven't come across unrealistic expectations so much. I found that the empathy level for everybody within this time tends to be high. But are there any particular kind of unrealistic expectations that you're kind of thinking of that might be cropping up, just to speak into that?
I mean, I guess just either parents who are sort of have high pressure parenting, who are like, my children, I don't want my child to get behind, and you know, you shouldn't as a teacher let our children get behind, as if the quality of education online is going to be equivalent to the quality of education in the room. So that's an expectation, I guess. The other one is, I guess, expectations against themselves, that teachers expect me to be a parent. Teachers expect parents to be as good a quality teacher at home as they may be receiving in the classroom. I mean, I've talked to quite a lot of parents who feel like deficient teachers. And I'm saying, actually, you're not trained. If this was about medicine, you wouldn't expect yourself to be a doctor of the quality of a doctor. You wouldn't even try. But when it comes to teaching, you guys have all been to university, you've got degrees in training, in education, and you've got experience behind you. No one would expect to be able to come in and do your job in the classroom, but some parents expect themselves to be able to be great teachers in the home. And I think that's unrealistic.
Yeah, I think that I've definitely come up against that one more. I think that a lot of parents feel that high level of expectation on themselves. I know that from speaking to various people, I would say perhaps more with younger children, that it's hard for younger children to see their parent as the teacher figure, because the way that we've set up education is that the child relates to the teacher in a really different way. You perform this role that is like a version of yourself that you've like adapted, that is successful in education. And the child sort of looks at you and they see you as an authority figure. And it's easier for the teacher to speak into a child's life on education, I think, sometimes than it is for the parent, because they have just typecast you as their teacher. And so they've decided to accept you as that person. So I think what's really helpful is if, say, for example, in my school where children are joining in year 7, if you haven't already got to know form tutors, which in my school, they're the people who will be responsible for pastoral care, to have a really open dialogue with that sort of point of contact. You can't really speak to every teacher. And some teachers, if you're a subject teacher, you don't have so much time to talk to the parent about pastoral matters, but normally the form tutor has more hours in their day like available to do that. I think the more that the teacher understands about your home environment, then it helps them to build that empathy with you as a parent, and also to communicate that so that every teacher can have the level of empathy that's needed for the child in the classroom. And I think that the more understanding, the more holistic understanding that we have of the home, whether it's, I think that's true for any time in education, but particularly at the moment, like whether you have 2 parents working online the whole day, you know, so obviously some children don't have 2 parents, some children are working with a single parent home or guardian, and they maybe are sharing their bedroom with younger siblings. The more that we understand, the more empathy that we can have for the situation, I think the more that we can help the child. Because I think one teacher said to me the other day, you win the child through empathy. So we can call them up then and say, look, I get it, that it's really difficult and you've got all of these challenges, and then they can begin to problem solve those challenges with you. Because at the moment they're having to be their own problem solver, like more than ever. So if we can kind of invite them into that conversation, then I think we can make progress with them.
That's so helpful. I mean, again, that's something that parents are really nervous about. You know, you get a call from the teacher and you think,
really?
What have I done wrong? You know, how am I going to fix this?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just great. I mean, this is such important stuff because it really does break down the barriers between school and home. And those are so, you know, parents are thinking, oh my goodness, they're so busy. They've got so many children to look after. They wouldn't want to hear from me. Or they think, oh, I don't want to talk to them because they'll tell me off for doing something wrong. So just hearing you thinking about knitting together the parent-teacher relationship for the sake of the child and their education, I think that's really, really encouraging for parents. Ollie, do you have the same sort of model in terms of parent-teacher contact? Is that something that that works out in your school too?
I would say there was a lot of contact. I think I'm just trying to think. We don't get much. If I'm really honest, I think the thing that the kids in my school, I've only ever really seen it as a good thing when parents get in touch, because I think that's great. I think that really makes us. I mean, it, you know, don't get me wrong. It can be in normal times. These times are different, but like in normal times it can be quite pressurizing, like, you know, when parents get in touch. But I do think it's great, because I think I think in a lot of cases it's definitely a symptom of a good thing, and you know, parents care and it makes you better. And I think, if I'm honest, in schools like mine, probably the parent engagement is less. But I think it's not that they're kind of, it's not that they don't it's just there's not a culture of getting in touch with the school.
Yeah.
So they can be so on it with I've had the same. I love my tutor group. I've had them for like 4 years, so I know the parents like really, really well, and the parents are so kind of on their children, but they just don't really think to get in touch with the school. They kind of almost put more pressure on.
So that might be something for parents who are watching to think, actually,
Yeah,
I could get in touch with the school. That would be a welcome development, right, as a result of this. Jan, with early years, obviously there's a little bit more contact, isn't there, with parents. How do we help parents not to panic right now? Because I think there's a lot of parents out there who are panicking about their children's development, and a lot of those. I mean, there are some of those, particularly I think in exam years within senior school, but quite a lot within primary are just sort of thinking we're missing out the foundations. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think, again, what's reassuring is that those 3 prime areas that I mentioned before, parents can deliver on. So parents can support in the personal, social and emotional development. Parents can deliver with the communication and language, time dependent, and parents can deliver on taking their children out for physical development. And I think, they can support them in that, and the rest, the phonics, the maths and everything else that comes, schools, we're there for a reason, and whatever next academic year looks like, I can rest assured that every member of staff, especially on my team, and I can speak for most of the teachers I know, will go hell for leather on making sure that those children catch up, and they will, they will progress. Every child has the ability to progress, but that's why the child's emotional well-being needs to be really supported in this time, because that is what's going to put them in good stead going forward, and their resilience in order to grab the curriculum grab the curriculum with both hands and run with it next academic year. So it's all about just making sure that their emotional well-being is key. So I don't think parents need to panic. I mean, parents are panicking, I understand that, and I think it's also about flipping that mindset around and thinking, actually, no matter how many times we're all referring to homeschooling, it's not homeschooling. You haven't got the same things that we've got in school. You haven't got our resources. You haven't got our timetable, our behavior systems. So actually, this is emergency education, and that looks like whatever it looks like in your household. So I would say to parents, and don't struggle. I know that this is always something people say, but really genuinely don't struggle alone. If you've got a question, I would rather a parent called me up on Teams and said, Ms. Jones, I don't understand how to teach this cluster, and I'd just be like, okay, let's do it together now. Off you go. And their confidence is restored, and off they go. So yeah, just communicate, and every teacher will.
Let's think a little bit about the emotional health of the children themselves. Obviously, we hear some stories in the newspapers around about children's mental health, and there's lots of negative predictors about a sort of pandemic of child mental health. I don't think any of that's very helpful, because I think it's predicting like statistics which actually displace our view of the individual. You said very effectively and helpfully there, Jan, that actually the primary responsibility of the parent and the teacher working together is for the emotional and social development of the child. Just a few thoughts from each of you about ways in which we've talked about the parent-teacher connection, the ways in which you would like to see parents particularly maybe investing, or things we might be able to do to invest a little bit more in the emotional health and well-being of our children. Probably communication is the first one you would reference, Jan, just talking a lot more. But I guess I wondered about talking about the pandemic specifically and how we can manage some of the children's anxieties. What Louisa, from your perspective as a head, to what extent do you think it's helpful for us as parents to be talking about the details of pandemic with children, or do you think it's very much age dependent in terms of how we approach things?
Yeah, I think it'll be age dependent, child dependent. I think it's hard to comment on at the moment, like not knowing what the dialogue is like at home. I've been quite surprised by how much so I've tutored year 11, so 15-year-olds. I've been quite surprised by how much they're not communicating yet how they feel about the situation. I think maybe some teenagers aren't yet sure what they feel. I think it's quite hard because we're a bit stuck. Like, they don't know when they're going to come out of it. They don't know what the consequences are for them yet. So I think it's quite hard for them to kind of like articulate, like an adult, a feeling of the consequences of these things. So I suppose that my thoughts on it are that it's important to create purpose for them at this time, some level of normality. So even though we're talking about like the media sort of exacerbates everything, maybe talking about the fact that what the media says isn't always like exactly true, and trying to kind of digest what's being said on the news to a more kind of minutiae level for their child, because the media says there are no exams. Well, that's not actually true. There is still an examination for the child, and what they're doing in every lesson as a result is still important. So I think like whatever adults can do to help they still feel like purpose is quite helpful, and it builds something that is really good for the long term in all of us. Like, almost it kind of gives you this feeling that we're all doing the kind of behind the scenes training at the moment, like an athlete has to do for a run, where you feel like maybe nothing we're doing right now matters. But if they can be given a sense of importance, I think that as soon as they feel purposeful again, their endorphins are higher. So I would say motivation is a key one for well-being.
Really helpful. Ollie, you're a sportsman. Say a bit about the sort of holistic well-being for young people, because the sport and the general physical activity is something that's been really pulled back. I mean, I've got two boys who love football. My son plays league football every Friday night. He's really missing that side of things. Have you noticed, again, particularly with behavior, the lack of team sport, the lack of physical expression as being something that's affecting young people's mental health and well-being, and how we can, any ways in which we can kind of navigate around that?
No, not me. Firstly, I'll take that. Thank you. I'll be a sportsman. I find, like, I feel like my best insight is into my year 10 sheesh group, and I think I don't know if people agree. I feel like a lot of the kids take it in a very similar way to a lot of adults. I think that I think they give themselves a bit of a kind of slow drip of news, and they're vaguely aware of what's going on, but really they kind of they sort of take a day at a time. And I totally agree with what Louisa says about just motivation, and I think just keeping things. I think that's probably harder as a parent, because you need that downtime, don't you? You're kind of the owner of the downtime, whereas the teacher, I'm the owner of the purposeful time. So but yeah, in terms of the physicality, I think, I mean, if I'm honest, I don't know much about that one. A lot of the boys in my cheese group are, the first onto the football field, but I really think that they've in the same way that I love playing football on a Monday night, they must be missing it too. But I think we're all just, I think it's the same as anyone really. I think we're all just kind of aware of all these things that we've lost, but we've all just kind of head down and do what we can for now. And I think that kind of goes with what you were saying. I think I was saying to my teacher group this morning, because we had a wellbeing day last week where they looked at a load of like podcasts and things that they can do just to in their own time. And I said, like, you guys are going to have to be really mature about your, like, just going out and finding hobbies on purpose, which we never had to do because they'd come to us or we'd walk into them. But kids now are going to have to find what they do in their own time for fun. And I do think, as a parent, I think I've learned the importance of routine massively, and just kind of being aware that if you're not in routine, that's the type of thing that makes you kind of maybe panic or worry a bit. So and I kind of think these skills are only going to help when we come out, because I think I'm not at all a mental health expert, but I feel like managing yourself is important anyway these days. So maybe we'll come out with better empathy for ourselves in a weird sort of way, and knowing how to manage that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I mean, it's a helpful insight about the level of maturity we're asking our children really to reach for. My with my daughter, you know, sort of, we have exercise bikes or whatever that me and my wife use. And it's been interesting to see her kind of just getting on there for half an hour a day. I mean, pedaling along, watching something on her screen, but just a sort of sense of like, actually, I need to do this. You know, I need to do the sort of stuff that adults do to stay well, because no one's saying, put on your PE kit and get out on the field. And so there is, I mean, it is going to be interesting, isn't it, coming out of lockdown again, see the sort of mature decisions that young people are making. And I guess that pushes us on towards sort of, again, celebrating the child and saying, wow, aren't they doing incredibly well in generality, given the circumstances that they find themselves in? I mean, I find it amazing that actually just that young people in general are adhering to the advice. When I go out into the town here, I just find it amazing that there aren't massive groups of young people milling around ignoring the guidance. And so I do think I do feel that we need to celebrate teachers, but also we need to celebrate the kids and actually think, wow, aren't they doing amazing? I don't think my generation were anywhere near as responsible as my children's generations are being right now. You know, goodness knows what would happen in the late 80s if this had happened. I just don't think we would have listened. So you guys are doing an amazing job. Jan, tell us a bit about socialization for younger children, because that is a problem. Obviously, the older children can make more mature decisions, but it's quite hard with young children because you're trying to keep them from touching each other all the time and hugging each other all the time. And you said about that kind of kinesthetic learning of actually kind of socializing together. Any advice to parents on that idea, you know, in terms of rough and tumble playing in the house? I mean, I think a lot of parents get a little bit wooden about kind of getting down on their knees and getting involved in the play. Presumably that's the best place to start right now to help them.
Down and get in the play, that's what I say. I think with the socialization, obviously the children are aware of what's going on, and no matter how much you safeguard a child from that, you know, parents can be quite, they don't pick up on any tension in my household, but no matter how much you safeguard your children from that, they're going to be picking up on the differences. The fact that they can't just go to London Zoo, you know, all those things that they have been used to. So I think with regards to socialization, yes, obviously just get down and dirty. And I think as well, when children are able to return to school, which hopefully won't be too long away, obviously the bubbles are there to protect the children, etc. And you know, you can only do so much, but it's also really key that those children do socialize with their peers, and so obviously every school has their own risk assessments and all of that stuff in place, but actually you want those children to have that interaction with each other in order to keep their mental health well. Can I just touch back on the mental health thing just very quickly?
Please.
Children in the early years, because I think, again, I have had boys send me on Seesaw their letters to Boris Johnson unprovoked by us, you know, to say, please, can you just open the schools up? It's really annoying. Which we've encouraged them to send. And I think, you know, they're picking up on all of this, and parents are saying, well, but I'm just saying, you know, I don't know what to say. I'm just kind of distracting them. And I think it's really key for children of that age and up to year 3, because I do pastoral up to year 3, is that I'm a huge advocate that stories are a great way in, and there's some incredible stories out there which can actually really kind of give that light touch, but also allow for those deeper, more kind of intentional conversations. I'm not sure, am I allowed to promote a website?
Yeah, of course you can, Jam. Go right ahead.
So there's a great free book website. You can set up your own subscription called Oxford Owl, and on there are some fantastic books for that. So books like Everybody Worries and We're All in It Together, about children that are experiencing homeschooling in a variety of different ways. Some critical workers are featured in it, and some, you know, that are working at home with single parent. So yeah, I think stories are an amazing way in. So, and even stories that you don't think are going to create conversation, like I told a parent to read about seasons the other day, because actually, like, the seasons come and go. This has come, but it will go. And I think that kind of acknowledgement of the fact that things do come and then things do pass is a really kind of important thing to embed in children who are sensing that something's not quite right at the moment.
That's so helpful. I actually make a business of, I've read to my children every night, pretty much without fail since they were tiny. We call it Reading Club, which made it a bit more flashy and fancy. So now it's an exclusive membership. There are 3 other members other than me. And, we just read together. What I find interesting is it's that settling time at the end of the day. And also it's an amazing time emotionally, because that is the point at which you can sort of take the temperature of where the children are at in terms of how they're doing. Are they exhausted? Are they agitated? Are they irritable? Are they sanguine? Are they happy? Are they content? And I found it, sometimes I feel like I'm just reading to myself, if I'm honest, because they're all just ragged and doing stuff. But something about the story and the story time, it really brings things down, and kind of helps us to connect at the end of the day. Jam.
Yeah, and on a very, very practical level, again, I've had, sorry, my connection says can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm still hear you.
Okay, great. I've had parents also say, but Miss Jones, even pinning them down to read a story. Well, where are you reading? On a very practical level, where are you reading? If you're reading at the kitchen table, maybe that's not the right place. Go and hide under a table and read. Go and create a den in the garden, or snow angels while you're reading. Do reading on the loo, in the bath, wherever, and create that kind of special occasion for that kind of conversation in order to take place.
Yeah, I think that's right. Creating context. Guys, we're running a little out of time, but you've been absolutely amazing. Huge apologies for my digression in the middle. I've been hearing you, I'm still hearing you doubly in my head, which is I have to lip read you and also hear you here on a 7-second delay. So I'm sorry if I was a bit late into the start, because I'm catching the wisdom and then I have to respond slightly before I've got all of it. So apologies for that, but you've been absolutely amazing. I want to say thank you again for all of the incredible work you're doing with children across the board, and to all of your colleagues and friends in education. We are so indebted to you guys. I really, as a church leader, I'm praying for you. As an ex-colleague, I'm absolutely in admiration for all that you're doing. And it's been amazing tonight just to see your amazing personability, and just hopefully slightly take the edge off this with parents to say, actually, if this is what your teachers are like, connect with them, because they're there for you. They're there for your kids. Let's improve the conversation. Let's, improve our social and pastoral care for our children at home. And then we'll see the best of their academic outworking as a result of that strong connection across all year groups. So thank you, guys. What an amazing opportunity to talk to you. And I know it's a school night, so you'll have to get ready for a big day tomorrow, but we really appreciate it. If you've joined us online through the St. Dionis YouTube feed, we'd love you to hit subscribe and like if you like what you hear and you want to connect with more. In a couple of weeks, I'm coming back with Kate Middleton. We're going to look at the emotional impact of pandemic, particularly looking at the teenage brain, how we can support the teenage brain moving through pandemic, hopefully back into some sort of unlock at some point relatively soon. So you can catch up on the last 2 editions, Circle of Security and Emotional Parenting in Lockdown. The first one, they're on the stream just around you now on YouTube, and also you can catch up and share as you like. God bless you, everyone. Thanks for all you're doing. Stay strong, stay confident, stay positive, keep parenting. You're the best thing that your children have. You're the most important influence on their life. You're the most significant influence on their life. You're the most precious thing to them. You might not be an amazing teacher. That's totally fine. Just be the parent that you're being. You're making an incredible difference. You're transforming their life for good. Keep doing it. Stay strong. You're doing really, really well. Thanks for all you're doing. Have a great night. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for our teachers, Jam, Louisa, and Ollie. God bless. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Bless you all. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.